Sport Business. Global Sports Intelligence.
Welcome to the second edition of our new monthly podcast, Inside the Deal. My name is Frank Dunn, and each month I'll be taking an in-depth look at one deal from the industry, together with an expert reporter from the Sport Business team. It could be a deal for media rights, for sponsorship, for distribution, for event hosting, sports tech, from any sector in the industry. It won't necessarily be the most valuable deal that we've reported on that month, but it will be a deal that we think tells us something interesting about where the industry is today and where it might be heading in the future. And this month we're going to be looking at a deal into sponsorship in the world of athletics. And I'm delighted to be joined by the European sponsorship editor of Sport Business, Matthew Glendinning. Welcome, Matthew. How are you doing?
Good to see you, Frank. How are you?
I'm in peak condition, mate. Thank you very much.
You look it.
So we're going to be talking about a deal that you reported on earlier in the month between a company called Novuna and Athletics Ventures. Now, for me, for my benefit, and also for the listeners, could you map out for us the dramatis persona in this story? Who's who?
Yeah, well, Novuna are obviously the sponsor brand, so it wouldn't surprise me if you've not heard of them before. I hadn't heard of them before. They're a small loans company. When I mean they're not small as a business, they're pretty big as a business, but they provide small loans for middle income brackets. So they're not payday loans. If, for example, there was someone in the office who was building a new kitchen, this is a true story, he had actually used Novuna to help finance that kitchen. They emerged from sort of Japanese conglomerates, so they've had a rebrand. So they were formerly Hitachi Capital PLC, who were owned by Mitsubishi. So these are big Japanese conglomerates. They've rebranded as Novuna in February 2022. This play definitely is about brand awareness to a great extent so that people have heard of them. They've got about 1.2 million customers daily and currently. And then, so that's who they are. And that's perhaps suggests why they might need to be better known, because I don't think people necessarily even knew that Hitachi Capital existed. So the rights holder is Athletic Ventures, which is maybe people are not familiar with either, because they're a joint venture between UK Athletics, London Marathon Events and the Great Run Company, created in April 2024. And that is really intended to merge the sort of grassroots elements of the sport with the elite elements of the sports, because grassroots elements has been quite healthy, I think, in the UK. The London Marathon's been hugely popular. The Great Run Company includes the Great North Run. These have done pretty well. But if you can combine it with the elite, the theory is that that should work a lot better, because it hasn't been working very well certainly at the UK athletics level. Third party is Rocket Sports, who are the exclusive sales agency, let's say, for Athletic Ventures. They're a agency co-founded by Sir Elton John in 2012. And a film producer called Luke Lloyd Davis. So they've come in from entertainment and wanted to get involved, I think primarily to support certain sports like athletics, hence it was around 2012. And they're there to help create this new sort of joint venture between elite and community and sell that to brands. And they've done well getting this deal together, I must say.
And before we get into the significance of this deal, both for athletics and for the sponsorship market, can you break us down how the deal works? What are the nuts and bolts? What are the values? What are the inventories? What do we need to know about this deal?
First thing is to think of the rights fee and the length, the duration. So it's 2025 to 2029. That's a big commitment to a sport that has been in some difficulty recently. And the rights fee, we understand from industry sources, is between 2 million and 2.5 million per year. And for that, they get quite a lot. They get title sponsorship of the major events in the UK. So the Novuna London Athletics Meet, which is the Diamond League meeting. They get title sponsorships to the Novuna UK Athletics Championships, which are the annual UK Athletics Championships, plus the indoor championships. And those, by the way, are used as sort of platforms to get on the Olympic team. So they have their own sort of drama inherent. And then they are also, and I think this is when the GB and Northern Ireland team compete internationally in the big events like the European Athletics Championship and the World Athletics Championships, they can now badge the vest. And that's a new development that World Athletics let in the last few years to try and help national associations make a bit more money. And so badging-wise, that is good and powerful inventory for not that much money.
And how did this, I mean, you mentioned these three different elements within the picture here. How did the deal come together? What was the background? Who approached whom and what's the story behind it?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been quick for a start. Novuna, they had relied pretty much on digital advertising and buying media to get their name out there. And they felt that that market was a bit fractured. They weren't really getting very targeted responses. So they went out to market and they apparently approached about 5 agencies around January, February, looking for sponsorships, looking for ideas, options. And Rocket Sports apparently outperformed the other 4. I don't know who they were, so no names, I'm not trying to dismiss any other people's work. But they really hit the sweet spot with Novuna. And the deal was wrapped up, I mean, for a deal of this quite complex, I think it's been wrapped up very quickly. I do know that the sort of pitch from Rocket Sports was very well executed. They really knew their client or potential client, sort of what they were looking for. And the two kind of made a very happy union. It looks like something that should work, but let's see.
And brands, when they're looking at sponsorship, I think we know that typically they are looking for characteristics and values which they feel align with their own. Now, we know, obviously, that sport is a massive platform for sponsorship because there are so many positive values which are embodied within sport. I'm curious about what the specific characteristics of values are of athletics as a sport, and maybe even more narrowly of athletics in the UK, which attracted Novuna and which they felt aligned with their own.
Yeah, I'm going to give my answer, Frank, and then I want to hear your answer because I think it's interesting what athletics stands for. Who is the audience for athletics? Is it the old? Anyway, I'll give you the sort of official take on it. Is that Novuna? When I spoke to the CMO, Teresa Lindsay, she was keen on sort of aligning the sponsorship with Novuna's core brand values, which are harmony, pioneering spirit, and sincerity. Well, perhaps that works well with athletics, perhaps it doesn't. It's difficult to kind of pass that. But she also said that she was very interested in aligning with ambitious goals at the elite level. So one can understand that. But also to a broad, almost CSR kind of level with the community. So I think we can both agree that the elite level athletics is exciting and gets audience, and that the community level and the mass participation level is something with quite deep roots in this country, and you could see how that works. So those are the kind of the two poles to this. I think the area in athletics that doesn't really is the middle ground. There is kind of no really marketable middle ground, and I think that so that's kind of been addressed. One last thing that I didn't mention in the article is she did mention quite a lot that she wanted to align herself with pride, and particularly engendering pride in difficult times. I think when I was thinking about athletics, I did think when you do see a UK runner coming around the bend into the straight and, you know, really putting everything into that last 100 meters, there is a kind of pride there. You know, it's very elemental in that sense. And there's a lot of flag waving as well. So I can see how the pride element fits into this. I'd like to get your opinion, Frank. I mean, do you think it's something that aligns with your values, aligns with your interests?
Well, probably like you, I'm probably of a similar age to you, I think, Matthew. And probably for me, that the golden period of athletics was the 80s. And since then, I watch the Olympics, occasionally watch a Diamond League, but I'm not a massive athletics fan. What I find when I watch the major athletics event, Olympic Games or top Diamond League fixtures, when I see certain performances in this sport, I find it makes me emotional in a way that I don't get emotional watching football. When I'm watching football, I'm very tribal. You know, I support my team, I want to win, and I'm happy if we win, I'm fed up when we lose. But I don't have an emotional response. I mean, I think sometimes when you're watching a really great elite athletics performance, well, for me anyway, it can bring me to tears. And there are not many other sports that have that effect on me.
I'm glad you said that, actually, because I was trying to sort of monitor my response to it. I have welled up when someone's shown courage or stayed out in front or come around the final bit or whatever. I've welled up. And that reminds me that Novuna also didn't want to be tribalistic. So they didn't want to go into football. They didn't want to go into something which was setting one set of society against another. So, yes, I agree with that.
Interesting. I didn't see the London Athletics meet live. I mean, it was on Sky Italia, but I watched extended highlights on YouTube. the thing that struck me immediately is that their brand was all over it. I would say it was at least as prominent as that of Wanda, which obviously is the title sponsor for the whole Diamond League series. So there was very, very strong branding across the event, which made me wonder whether this is actually quite a traditional kind of sponsorship where everything is predicated on media value, or from what they've told you, are there other ways that they're going to be assessing their ROI on this investment?
Yes, it's not just about branding. Branding is hugely important. Engagement is the sort of secondary area, and that could be anything from, I know that for the London event, they were giving away 200 tickets. And the London event, by the way, is a sellout. So that's pretty impressive for the London Stadium. So they want engagement that way, but also engagement, a lot of digital engagement. And I know that Rocket Sports talk a lot about what a good alignment athletics is for video clips. Can't say for certain clips will necessarily be an area that Novuna will go in, but the engagement is important, and an organic engagement is the whole point. You're not buying that engagement, you're getting it as a consequence. So I think that's very important for them.
One of the things I always struggle with sponsorship generally and thinking about ROI, I mean, here we're talking about a financial services company sponsoring athletics. And obviously they have their metrics, they have their measurements to look at if it's successful or not. But as a business, how does that translate into a person buying one of their products? Where is the point at which it becomes meaningful to them as a company?
That's interesting. It differs for all kinds of companies, but I think it fits well with financial product, particularly in the new financial environment where everything's digital. So although I haven't used the product, so I can't, and I haven't gone through the athletics website to see exactly how you link through, it makes a lot of sense that a digital product would have easy access via other digital content. There's another brand in the financial services category, Revolut, for example, an app, and you can manage all your banking on it. They've gone into sponsorship, whereas before they were into digital media, very like Novuna. We have an exclusive that they may indeed be a major sponsor for Audi F1 when Audi F1 enters the Formula One arena next year. So I think if you're a digital product, everything's traceable, rather like also, obviously, the big example of that is online betting. It's all traceable. So I think they can really see where they're building business and pure sales.
Earlier, you touched upon the general health of athletics, and I think we've got a very good perspective on why Novuna has come to this. Understanding the significance of this deal for athletics in the UK, for the health of the sport and for the finances. I mean, we know that a couple of years back, we were seeing those headlines. I think it was the end of 2023 when they were 3.7 million loss, which was a record loss for UK athletics at the time. The details that I saw reported from their annual report were they talked of total income of about £15 million, which was 17% down on the previous year. They talked about commercial income from athletics events, which was 32% down on the previous year. So difficult times. And I think I recall Ian Beattie, who was the chair at the time, talking about targeting 25, 26 as being the year when they should break even. This deal, how does it fit in? Does it plug the gap? How does it fit into the bigger picture of the finances of the sport in the UK?
Yeah, it's important, even though it's only 2 to 2.5. It's also a measurement of where athletics is as a commercial venture. They will be the lead sponsor by a country mile. Nike, who have essentially bailed out UK athletics from the financial position you mentioned by extending their deal from 2030 to 2040 and then front-loading payments just to help UK athletics out. They're paying more. They are essentially have been and are the main funder of athletics. And then you've got a very small tail of secondary sponsors, including sort of legal services and so forth. The impact that this will have in terms of consolidating athletics finances is huge. And I think the media side has also been just lately kind of wrapped up with a new deal with the BBC, which I think you understand is worth about 3 million per year. Is that right?
I think a little bit less. I mean, I've not had this confirmed, but I mean, we've heard that there was a slight reduction on the previous deal, which we understood to be around £3 million. But I mean, ballpark, those are the kind of figures that we're talking about. So I mean, BBC, Nike, and now Novuna, those three together Can we say that athletics in the UK is in a relatively comfortable place now through to the end of the decade?
I think we can. And I think that there's one sort of joke they have up their sleeve as well, is that we've bid for the World Athletics Championship in 2029. And if we win that bid, then all those values start to look at, well, obviously the BBC won't get necessarily rights to that event, so park the BBC for a minute. But Nike and Novuna will be associated with that, and that would be a real win for them. So I think, when people talk about, is this a new era for British athletics? I think it is, in the sense that you've got some stability and you've got a brand that really wants to back it. And I'm sure that in their activations, that will be all part of the story. And we've got some interesting Olympic Games coming up. You've got to factor in the Olympic Games as well. I mean, it's interesting how athletics works in two ways. One as a national governing body like UK Athletics or Athletic Ventures as is. And then you've got the British Olympic Association, sort of, you could argue, competing with the same sort of marketing pounds. But, we're not talking huge amounts of money. So for this amount of money, they're doing a good thing. And if they can communicate that, I think that helps as well, that they are a supporter of a sport that we do have a stake in. People do, even if it's on an intermittent basis, feel quite passionate about. So I think they've got a lot of possibilities to win here.
And projecting forward, now we've got these deals in place, as you said. We've got the Novuna, we've got the Nike renewal, got the BBC renewal. In terms of the branding and the sponsorship opportunities around athletics, particularly in the UK, have these guys now colonised all of the real estate around that? Or are there opportunities in athletics for other brands to still come in?
Yes. No, they haven't colonised it all. As you mentioned, the branding around the Diamond League event is impressive. And you think maybe there's not much room, but I think there's a lot of room for other sponsors to come in. I know that the European Athletics Championships in 2026 in Birmingham is an area that there's a lot of inventory to be sold, and that could be a major event. They also have a very short tail. After the two we mentioned, there's not a long tail at all. They've got a great opportunity to create a sort of much more robust second tier. And there's a lot of sectors that have traditionally been involved in athletics that are unfilled. It's quite unusual, for example, not to have a supermarket involved. As we were talking earlier before we came on the podcast, we both remembered Spa being on the vests of at almost every athletics meeting in Europe. Sainsbury's were involved after the London 2012. So it's a very well-trodden area, but also sort of fast-moving consumer goods, healthy snacks would probably preferably. These are other areas where you can imagine some brands coming in. Also technology. There's a lot of technology used in athletics, a lot of analysis. I'd have thought technology companies could well be interested.
So understanding the portfolio and how it might evolve, top level, we are Nike, Novuna, and is it National Lottery is also at that level?
Well, National Lottery are in there. There is a sort of third partner, I guess, and I know it's difficult to quantify how much they might put in. Then there's a legal firm, and I think there's only two others. It really is a short tail. It's difficult to think. It reminds me, I've just been writing about cycling, that some of those cycling teams, they've got like the big branding on the shirts and then hardly anything after that apart from the bike and so forth. So going back in time, I don't think that's necessarily been something that's been addressed before. I don't think there has been a long tail or a robust second tier in athletics. You may remember the days when Aviva were the main partners for such a long time, and then Muller have had a huge, but you don't really think about the second tier, and perhaps it's sometimes difficult to think how would that second tier monetize itself. But an event like the London Marathon has a long tail, right? They have Tata Consultancy Services as the title, but they've got so many other brands involved. And you would have thought that a healthy UK athletics should have a similar sort of structure where everyone could make something out of it.
Well, I think that pretty much covers everything off on this deal. My intention with this podcast is to keep it fairly short, try and bring it in within half an hour. I think people have busy lives, and by all accounts, there are other sport business podcasts other than those by Sport Business. Who knew? So to me, that covers everything we need to know. And in terms of the deal, I think it sounds to me like a very important deal for athletics. And even though the sums of money that we're talking about are not colossal by the standards of, say, football, it does seem to me that this is a pretty important deal for athletics, which remains, as you said, a really, really important sport in the UK.
Indeed. And I think it's important that the next time you well up at athletics meeting that you let the public know.
Okay, or tweet it or something. So, well, thanks for that, Matthew Glendinning, and hit the tape for today. So you can go off now and you can do your lap of honour around the kitchen. If you want to know more about our reporting on sponsorship, And if you want to have access to our huge database of sponsorship deals, you can either take a look at the website or you can write to us on info@sportbusiness.com. So thanks for listening and enjoy your day.